Episode 46. Welcome back to the Missoula podcast. I'm Brandon Smith.
I'm Stephen Ressett.
Hey, I am excited to be in the studio today. We have incredible guests. I walked into the studio this morning and saw that we had Robert Frost in the studio. And I was like, whoa, how did Nick do that? Like time travel, like we have America's greatest poet in studio. I walk in, Stephen, and it wasn't Robert Frost. It's Dr. Robert Frost.
I see.
Dr. Robert, how are you?
Good.
How often do you hear that? Like, whoa, your name's Robert Frost?
Just about every time I get introduced to somebody new.
Yeah. Have you ever gone to your parents and be like, Mom, what were you thinking? Why? Like, what's...
No, not necessarily. My name is Robert William. William was my grandpa's name. He passed away before I was born. And so I was going to be named William Robert.
Okay.
And then my mom is one of 7. She has 5 brothers. And she told her brothers what they were going to name me before I was born. And they're all excited they were going to have a Billy Bob in the family. And so my mom and dad switched the names around. So now I'm Robert William.
Robert William. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And how familiar are you with Robert Frost, the poet?
I know his poetry, but
I'm not very familiar. I do know like his one about the 2 roads diverge in a road, and I took the one less traveled. Like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one I know. But I think that's a great place to start because I'm sure throughout your life there's been some forks in the road, and you had to choose which way to go with school and education and career. And even in your bio, it said you were searching for a different medical field and got into your rotations. And
Mm-hmm.
I know your family background. Your dad was a radiologist,
Yep.
and so
Yep.
I'd just love to hear your story and why radiology.
Yeah. So grew up in Rapid City, South Dakota, and have always enjoyed the sciences. So I kind of always knew that I was going to go into some science for college. Ended up going to Montana State.
Boo.
Go Cats.
Oh, how did he get
I
here?
don't know. Who invited this guy? This is the Missoula podcast.
We could probably edit that out. Yeah. But yeah, I ended up going to MSU.
What took you to MSU? What was it?
Microbiology.
Okay.
So they have a pretty solid micro department that was kind of separate from their cell bio neuroscience department, and ended up getting into microbiology in high school and wanted to pursue that path in college. And then found out that I wasn't very good at writing, didn't like to write, and getting into academia or something research-based, having to write grants and whatnot. Didn't want to go that route, and kind of always knew about medicine from my dad and my family. And so decided to shadow a few people, ended up really liking, the effect that doctors can have on patients and go that route. I still wanted to blaze my own path and not do radiology like my dad did. But as I got into med school and did my rotations, I always went and visited him, and the radiologists seemed to be the happiest people in the hospital, and really enjoyed what they were doing. And
Isn't that the worst though, Robert? We all end up becoming like our dads.
exactly. Yeah. And I'm really happy it ended up this way because I really love what I do. So
How old were you when you knew you were going to be a doctor? Like that was the dream.
that probably didn't happen till like junior college.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
So what was the childhood dream?
Initially I wanted to be a marine biologist,
Okay.
Oh, like
just like everybody in the 90s, I
That's
think.
awesome.
So
What was it about those dolphins?
yeah.
yeah.
And sharks. That was
Sharks.
kind of the draw.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, it just didn't work out that way. But.
So growing up in Rapid, how does one in South Dakota want to become a marine biologist? I think there's not a lot of marine biology going on
That's
in
a fair
Rapid City.
question. I think it was kind of the mystery of the ocean and
Mhm.
being probably the farthest you can be away from the ocean, and just kind of, there's a lot of National Geographic and Discovery Channel. Shark Week was always on. So
Do you still find yourself traveling when you are at the ocean, just captivated?
oh yeah,
Love it. Are you still?
yeah, I love the water.
That's
and-
awesome.
Yeah.
So growing up, dad was a radiologist. What did mom do?
Mom was a nurse.
Okay.
So I'm the oldest of 4 kids. So, and my middle brother and sister are twins. And so after my brother and sister were born, I was born when my dad was in residency in Minneapolis, and we moved when I was 2. And my brother and sister were born right before that move. And then after that move, my mom became just a stay-at-home mom. Gotcha. I shouldn't say just, but
yeah, I know what you meant.
She was a mom. So
can we change gears here real quick? Mm-hmm. Can we talk about the handlebar mustache?
Sure.
I'm not surprised it's taking this long.
I know. I waited, but you probably hear the Robert Frost daily, but you probably hear some sort of comment about sick stash on a daily basis.
Yeah. My wife says it's mostly I get most comments from men.
Oh, sure.
As I'm sure you do too.
Yeah. Nick, this is incredible.
So, but I've had the stash now. My daughter's 9 and she hasn't seen me without a mustache and probably won't, she probably wouldn't recognize me without one. So
when did it start and how did you talk your wife into marrying you?
She actually prefers it.
Okay.
When we got married, I didn't have a stash. But then, I ended up growing one in residency and, it just stayed since.
How long have you had the handlebar? Has that been?
Since about residency.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It comes and goes, depending on how much I want to put into it.
It's solid. I would hire you to be my doctor just because of the stash. Done. All credibility.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to switch gears again. Okay. We're going to overlook that you went to MSU. Okay?
Sure. That's fair.
But then you transitioned. Where'd you go after that? And then how did you find your way to Missoula?
Yeah. So, from MSU, went to University of South Dakota, back to South Dakota for med school. And that was 4 years there. And then, during med school, even, didn't want to follow dad's steps exactly, but, like I said, kind of went and chose radiology. And then went to residency for radiology. And that's a 5-year residency. And that was in Grand Rapids, Michigan, with Michigan State University. And then after those 5 years, you're a radiologist after residency. But nowadays, there's kind of so much to learn in residency or for radiology that everybody subspecializes. And so you kind of pick an area of the body that you want to focus on a little bit more. And the area that I chose was abdominal imaging, or it's often called body radiology. And I chose that because I loved everything about radiology and really had a hard time picking that subspecialty. And body kind of covers a lot. And so what that involves is a lot of cancer diagnosis and follow-up. And so ended up going to University of Colorado in Denver for a year for fellowship there. And then by that time, it was time to interview for a real job and not have to move around so much. And when it came time,
what college didn't you go to?
And when it came time to find a job, I was lucky enough to have this job posted and was able to interview out here and ended up being a perfect fit and loved.
Had you been to Missoula?
Yeah.
Prior to that?
Yeah.
interview?
So I've got a few uncles and aunts, cousins that live out here and been coming out here since I was a kid. So I knew of Missoula and, being in Bozeman for a while, knew about Montana. And my wife's also from South Dakota. And we kind of both knew that we wanted to be in the Mountain West after it was all said and done. And just got really lucky that the timing worked out to come out here. So.
Robert, you were in school, which seems like forever.
Yeah.
Most people know that to be a doctor, you have to be in school forever. But what is one or two things that people don't know about going down the route of becoming a doctor that was challenging or fun, or how was that season of life for you? Yeah,
it's definitely a time that you kind of have to just buckle down and do it. It's in residency, they've got limitations. There's like laws on how much we can work, and the residency programs will kind of push those limits as much as they can. So you can only work like 80 hours a week averaged over 4 weeks. So it can be really busy sometimes, and other times it's not as busy, but it's something that you kind of need to have the passion for before you get there.
Why do they manage time?
Because there is a thing, they call them residencies because you used to be a resident in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Like you used to live there,
Right.
and you were essentially always on call. And so there were some mistakes made in the past. It happened in New York where mistakes were made by a resident and the wrong thing happened, or somebody got hurt or
So
died.
just to protect
both
the resident
protect
and the patient.
yeah, exactly. But you still, it's a lot to learn. And so you still need to have that time to be able to learn everything that you need to know. And so it's a grind. But then, you start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and
delayed gratification.
Exactly. Yeah.
How long have you been in Missoula?
Almost 5 years now. We
5 years.
moved in 2019.
Okay.
So,
but I'm wondering what were the effects on your relationship with your wife during that season?
yeah.
How did you guys find time to date or to be married?
Yeah. Yeah. We got married in my intern year, the first year of residency. So we were dating through med school, and it was, in South Dakota, you do your first 2 years at the University of South Dakota in Vermilion. And then, after that, we split up to clinical rotations across the state. And so we had been dating maybe like 2 weeks, and then it was time for me to leave, cross back to Rapid City for my clinical rotations. And it was long distance for 2 years. And then we were actually living together during residency, and she's been awesome through it, supportive at every step of the way. But yeah, it's definitely there's some understanding on her side as well as far as the time commitment that was involved. And but yeah, same thing for her. I think she would say there was a light at the end of the tunnel, and that was a way to keep going. So
It had to feel so good to just land, have structure, certain to be like, because
through all the training that everything has kind of a deadline, and that you're going to have to be moving somewhere else eventually. And this is finally the place that we landed that doesn't have a deadline. So
we'll come back to radiology and what you do here in a little bit. Kind of shifting gears outside of work. You're here in Missoula, Western Montana, mountains, outdoors.
Yeah.
What are some of your hobbies, passions, interests?
Yeah. So love to fly fish and mountain bike, especially this time of year. And then in the winter, I snowboard when I'm by myself. And then when I'm with the kids, I ski. It's a little easier to move them around. Yeah.
So Stephen, you just picked up a mountain bike recently. This is new for you.
So I'm a runner.
Mm-hmm.
I have been holding out on not going down the mountain bike trail, for lack of a better word, because of the costs associated and because I think I knew I would love it and be addicted.
Mm-hmm.
Are you addicted?
Oh yeah.
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 Where's your go-to spots to ride around here?
I love Marshall Mountain. I'm really happy that the city ended up purchasing the rest of that land, and the potential for the development of more trails out there is going to be pretty exciting to see how that all plays out. So, those trails are a ton of fun. And yeah, that's, if I've got friends or family that come to town and want to ride, that's kind of the first place I'll take them.
There you go. So, and then fly fishing as well. Do you have people that you go fly fish with, or is that your time to be away and just enjoy the outdoors?
A little bit of both. If I only have a few hours to kind of decompress, I'll just go by myself. And it's, Missoula is so awesome being able to fish in town, and it's great fishing, and get into fish right away. And when I interviewed out here, one of their selling points for me to come out here was they said there was over 500 fishable miles within a 50-mile radius of Missoula. And I was like, say no more. So
sign me up.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
And then skiing. What's your go-to mountain?
We go to Snowball. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy that we're
it's so awesome. Yeah.
25 minutes from our front door, we can be on the mountain.
Yeah. If we've got, occasionally I'll have like a random day off in the middle of the week. And so we'll drop the kids off at school. And by the time, school drop off's 8:30 and we're up there before the lifts are loading.
Yeah.
And we can have a really solid day of skiing and be back in time to pick them up for
so great
after school. So it's awesome.
It's awesome.
Going back to you choosing to come to Missoula, what were a couple of spots that you were like, I hope we don't have to move there? Was there anything like that on your radar?
Yeah.
Back to South Dakota? No, I'm
yeah.
just kidding.
No. I did. I interviewed back in Rapid City actually with my dad's group.
Okay.
And it didn't quite have the same feeling of me working with them. And it wasn't quite as good as the feeling and the fit that I got when I interviewed out here. So that's, like I said, we're really happy we're out here. Did not want to be in Eastern South Dakota. I grew up in the Black Hills and loved the mountains and all of those activities. And so I knew long-term being somewhere flat like that was not an option for me. Eastern South Dakota, I got asked to come back and work in Michigan when I was all done with fellowship, but it's beautiful out there, but still that's even farther away from family. And that was kind of going the opposite direction. So.
Missoula feel like home?
Oh,
I feel like you guys are here.
Yeah.
This is the
for
spot.
sure.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Great place. Family and raise
kids.
kids.
Raising the family and the community here is, we've loved it.
Awesome. Should we do it? Rapid fire questions, Stephen. How many do we have this week? What are you going to go with?
Might be 6, might be 7.
You have no clue.
We don't
You
know.
have no clue. Dr. Robert, first question for you. What's your earliest initial memory of Missoula, Montana?
Yeah. So we were out here visiting my uncle and my dad and I got set up on a float trip. And I think we floated, I can't remember the river, but I think it was the Blackfoot, like right through town as it came down and joined up with the Clark Fork. But it was in like late July, early August, and it was grasshopper fishing time. And I just remember having fish smoke that grasshopper. I was only about 10 years old and
so fun.
I was catching way more fish than my dad. And
bragging rights.
yeah. Oh yeah.
That's
And I had like just started getting into fly fishing at that point. And so I was just kind of sealed the deal that I was going to love that forever. So
that's awesome.
What is your favorite go-to coffee spot?
I'm pretty equal opportunity between all the coffee shops in town, but I'd say Drum. When I interviewed here for the job, we stayed at the DoubleTree down by the river. And the morning of the interview, my wife went and got some Drum coffee and brought it back to the hotel room. That was like one of the best lattes I've ever had.
Probably some nostalgia too.
Oh yeah,
that day
exactly.
Is memorable.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How about restaurants? Do you have a favorite here in Missoula?
Yeah, our go-to recently has been Sonny's original cheesesteaks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They used to be a food truck and now they're brick and mortar out by the airport.
I think you're the third person last week I've heard talk about Sonny's. I have not been there yet.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to try it.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Yeah, cheesesteaks are
Great
great.
building.
They just started doing burgers too.
Sweet.
Burgers are great. So
well, is that out close to your house? Obviously, 598.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. As soon as they're connecting the roads from Mullen to Broadway. And as soon as they do that, another one of those connectors, it'll be even closer. So
it's awesome. Stephen, you knew the answer to that question before we asked it.
I should
What zip code do you live in?
59808.
I screwed that one out.
So great. What to you is the weirdest thing about Missoula?
The slant streets and the traffic. It still kind of blows my mind that it can be really busy on a Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock and we're just kind of stuck in traffic for a while.
You're out 808. So, you're dealing with North Reserve.
Yeah.
Every day.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just wild.
What do you love most about Missoula?
The community and just kind of the values of the community. Things that I wanted to teach my kids are, love the outdoors and conservation and just having some diverse culture. That was all of those things kind of really drew us to Missoula, and they've kind of played out exponentially since we've been here. So yeah, the community.
Yeah. Is there a particular book that you've read throughout the course of your life that has made a significant impact on who you are today?
I think so I was a bit of a nerd in high school. I'm still a nerd, I guess, but
you're a radiologist.
I'm a radiologist.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Just own it.
But in high school, I read The Andromeda Strain. It's about like a a virus that came from outer space and started like killing people really quickly. And at that time, it kind of started making me think about microbiology and got me interested in how something so small can kind of, there's been a lot of diseases that have changed the course of humanity and history. And so it was kind of got the ball rolling down that road. So
interesting. Last question. It's not one of our normal, but I'm just adding it because you're a radiologist and you have kids. So as a doctor, as a radiologist, are there any weird rules, guidelines inside of your home that you do or don't allow your kids to do because of radiology? Like, do you have a microwave?
Oh, yes.
No, but like, is there like, do you see the world differently? And so in an effort to protect your kids, what are some of those precautions you take?
Great question.
Yeah, it's as in radiation wise and whatnot, that's, we don't do anything special than anybody else, I don't think, but knowing how people get injured, kind of the two most common things I see coming through the ER are like ATV, snowmobile accidents, and horseback riding. And those people get roughed up. And so we don't ride horses. We don't have an ATV or anything like that. But, and trampolines. We don't have a trampoline. But
the 90s were a better time.
They were.
We got injured a lot more.
We've got, the kids have friends who have trampoline. They can still jump on a trampoline, but it's knowing what can happen is tough, letting go and letting your kids enjoy their life.
Sure.
So,
well, yeah, I can't imagine the things that you've seen in your, decade plus almost of being around hospitals and trying not to micromanage your kids. That must be a challenge for you. I'm guessing. Yeah.
And it was a challenge for me growing up too, with both my parents being in the medical field. And I still, like, my mom probably still would never let me get a motorcycle. Even though I'm out of the house for many years and got my own family, but
should put the kibosh.
Should. Yeah.
Well, so not a motorcycle, but you do ride a
mountain bike.
And do you do any unicycling? Did I hear that?
Or one wheel?
One wheel. I do. I have unicycled too.
Okay. So is that your rebelliousness coming out?
Yeah. I just enjoy, the flow of movement. And so, I got a one wheel to kind of do the snowboarding in the summer, and it's a lot of fun.
So you one wheel from home to the office? Like
every now and then. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's gotta be.
It's about 6-7 miles.
I was gonna say 6-7 miles.
Yeah. It's got a range of about 20 miles, I think, or 18 miles. So I could go a little farther, but I try and ride my bike to work, one wheel sometimes. It's a little tough out Mullen Road. They're working on building the path all the way back, but with the construction going on, it's a little tougher nowadays. But
do you wear a helmet?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
So Dr. Robert, I don't mean this to be infomercial sounding, but advanced imaging has been serving Western Montana for more than 20 years. Your guys' goal is to provide the most advanced diagnostic services and the highest quality care. No doubt as a doctor, you took an oath to care for people and do what's best for them and their interest. We heard a little bit about why radiology. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing right now. And, you're looking at the whole body.
Sure.
I think when people hear advanced imaging, the first thought is mammograms,
right?
But you guys do so much more than that,
right?
Share with us a little bit about who advanced imaging is, what your role is, and what you guys are doing there.
Yeah. So along with breast imaging and the mammograms, we have 2 MRI units. They're different field strengths. So one's a 1.5 Tesla, the other's a 3 Tesla, and that just is kind of the strength of the magnet. To the 3 Tesla can be a little more detailed, and we just got that within the last year, and helps us do scans faster, higher detail, that sort of thing. We also have a CT scanner and a PET CT, and PET is kind of a nuclear medicine imaging that uses CT. CT uses X-rays to look at the body, kind of slice the body like a loaf of bread, essentially. And it's kind of 3D imaging. And so we've got all of those as well to kind of come up with the best diagnosis. there's been a lot of talk about the whole body MRI. We do whole body MRI, but we're only doing it for patients that have that indication for it. And whole body MRI is useful in patients who may have some very rare genetic predisposition for cancer. There's some genetic mutations that make somebody almost like 100% likely to have a cancer by the time they're 40. And those patients would benefit from a whole body MRI just to kind of screen and see if and when that cancer pops up, we can identify where that is.
Sure.
But at the moment, we're not doing whole body MRI for anybody just kind of walking in off the street who's otherwise healthy to try and find a cancer.
Do you see that ever becoming a service this year where just a walk in, like, hey, give me a full diagnosis scan, let me know what you're seeing? Or
possibly. So right now, the studies that have been out there have shown that there's the risk of doing this study kind of outweighs the benefit of potentially finding a cancer. The studies that I've seen have only shown that they detect a significant cancer in maybe like 1% to 2% of people that get screened. And it's not a cheap test. Usually they're around like $2,500 to have it done, and insurance doesn't pay for it. So that's coming out of your pocket. And the risk of finding something that's just incidental, that either it could be a cancer, but a cancer that you live with and doesn't necessarily kill you, or it may be something that's benign and you don't really need to do anything about it. But now we're doing so it's a screening test. So we would find something, but then we've got to kind of hone in and do a more detailed study to figure out what that is and if it does need anything else. And sometimes that leads to biopsies or surgeries, and you're going down a road that you didn't necessarily ever need to go down if we didn't know it was there. So sometimes at this point, ignorance is bliss. And it's leading to more problems than benefit at this point in time. But if the studies show that doing this can lead to a longer life or improve your life expectancy, then we can go from there. But
what do you love most about your job, and why? It sounds like you love it.
Oh yeah, I do. There's radiologists kind of get compared to kind of like the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain. We don't see patients that often. When I see a patient, most of the time I'm seeing them through the screen and their images.
So you're not, you're not doing surgeries, operations. You're really, or
some,
are you?
Yeah,
you are doing
some.
Okay.
So there's radiology is pretty diverse. So there's, I do some procedures where you use image to help guide like a needle to a certain point in the body to do a biopsy or drain fluid collection or something like that. But for the most part, I'm doing just the diagnosis. So just seeing the pictures that radiology tech would take the pictures, and then I look at them. But what I like about radiology is I see kind of everybody. I read OB stuff, so I see the unborn to 100 plus year old patient, and sometimes I go from a fetus to a really old person, one after another, and you kind of get to see everybody. And then I do breast imaging as well, and with breast imaging and radiology, we are kind of usually the first to diagnose the breast cancer, and then we kind of help guide the care for the patient and help the patient kind of get through any of that, or also there to reassure the patient that the lump that they're feeling is nothing to worry about. And with breast imaging, I do get to see patients face to face and kind of be there.
And I apologize, I interrupted Stephen's question there. What do you love the most about what you do?
Yeah. So a lot of that patient care and being able to kind of help direct the patient care and try and get the best possible outcome for the patient if they need treatment or whatever. I also really like the technology, and there's a lot of new and developing technology kind of constantly in radiology. That's, even since I've been in residency, there's new studies that are done. They're coming out with new techniques to find or target different types of cancer, that sort of thing. So you're kind of always learning and always finding new things. So,
and no doubt, being a doctor, you've had to deliver some hard news at times.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested for like the normal people. Not that you're not normal.
Sure.
For the people that aren't wizards.
Yeah, that aren't wizards behind the screen. Exactly. How have you been able to handle that emotionally, or do you have to detach, or is it one of those things where you just do what you got to do because that's the job?
Yeah. So most of my bad news delivery is in, telling somebody that I'm at least concerned that they may have a breast cancer. And sometimes I can know with a pretty decent amount of certainty that what I'm seeing on the images is more than likely a breast cancer. Other times it's kind of a toss up, and we still need to do a biopsy to figure out exactly what's going on. But there is, I would say most of the time there is some, level of detachment. I don't think you could survive this job without kind of separating yourself from that a little bit.
In school, was there any education, or were you taught at all on how to be empathetic, how to deliver, or have you just been out on your own to find the scripting and verbiage?
For the most part, it's been on your own, but there was, like in med school, there was some kind of more humanities courses or lectures that kind of tried to go over, patient interaction. But I think a lot of that, people choose their specialties based on their personalities and whatnot. And those people who are really good with patient or interacting with people, kind of choose those specialties where they're more patient facing, and others kind of pull back a little bit.
Well, I'd imagine on the flip side of Stephen's question, there's also times you get to deliver good news.
Yeah.
Hey, you're cancer free. Hey, it was not what we thought.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's got to be rewarding and makes for a great day.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can get to kind of just see the stress or anxiety kind of melt from their shoulders, and big sigh of relief. But yeah, it's definitely got its ups and downs. Fortunately, for the most part, it's a lot of good news. With the bad news isn't quite as often. So if you could go back, would you go down this path again? I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I think I would. I really enjoy radiology and all it has to offer, like I said. And, there's a lot of new and exciting things coming out. I don't know. I was thinking about my kids. I don't know if I'd have them go down this road.
Well, it's the family business by this time.
By this time, point. But there's, they're always talking about artificial intelligence, and I think in my career, it's only going to help me be more efficient and safer and all of that. But there's probably going to be a time where there's not going to be as much of a need for radiologists, but I don't think that's a long time off. So, well, we're so thankful that you righted your wrongs and came to Missoula from Bozeman. And thank you for all that you're doing here in our community. And it just sounds like you're a perfect fit for what we're all about: community, health, getting outside, fishing, mountain biking. And so maybe I'll see you up at Marshall or on Blue Mountain at some point. Yeah, for sure. That sounds good. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. No, Missoula, if you're listening, if you're driving down Reserve Street and you see a one wheel with a sick handlebar mustache, honk and wave, because it is the wizard behind the curtain here in Missoula. But no, Robert, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story. And I reiterate what Stephen said. Thank you for the impact and making Missoula awesome. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Thanks for having me. Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
What's up, Missoula? This is Nick Balla, producer of the Missoula podcast. We truly appreciate you hanging out with us as we dive into the stories that make our city special. If you could do us a quick favor and follow the show wherever you are listening, whether that's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, maybe you're watching on YouTube, so hit that little subscribe button. It really helps us out. Head on over to www.themissoulapodcast.com for more information, and we'll see you next week.